Did you see the Roundup case got reduced from, I do believe, $1.5 billion to in the hundreds of millions? A judge reduced it, saying it was unconstitutional. Did you see that, sir?
I did not, but I understand that because it's 9 times the actuals is what our U.S. Supreme Court is saying punitive damages should be in the range of reality. So I don't know what the actual verdict was for the injury, but 9 times that is the norm. Anything beyond that, they normally reduce.
Okay, and now for those who might have a Roundup claim, are we still taking them?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. There's another settlement yet to come. If you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and you use Roundup, you still have a viable claim. And they're finding out now, the company's finding out now that there's more cases than they thought. They've got to come up with a solution to resolve it. And, of course, I think they're going to create an MDL at some point to try to end their liability because it's a non-ending scenario for them because people can get non-Hodgkin's lymphoma now. They can continue getting it and they use Roundup. And so they have to have some type of ending game to it, and I imagine that's what they're trying to come up with.
And the numbers were, there was a verdict, $1.56 billion, and the judge reduced it to $611. Well, Richie, people are listening to that, and they're thinking, and what we're talking about is the punitive award and things like that, and you get into emotional distress. And but how do you punish? What usually happens on this mass tort, if there's a class, then you're representing everybody except the opt-out, so you can punish them at once. But because of injuries like Roundup are unique, you have to bring those cases usually one at a time. How, theoretically, if there's been thousands of people injured or exposed by Roundup and they want to punish it, how is it legal, or how do you punish Roundup under punitives? And people need to understand compensatory damages is compensate. That means your injuries, and that gets into pain and suffering, which is a non-economic damage. And then you get into punitives, and that's to punish someone. Richie, in general, how does someone determine, well, Brent was first, because you look at net worth when you're talking about punishing companies, because fining someone or punishing someone $1,000 when you're worth $1 billion, it's just not going to get the number.
And a great example is everyone's heard of the hot coffee case at McDonald's, and so the punitives on that, they basically fine them 1% of a day's sales in coffee, and it turned out to be that big verdict everyone talks about. But anyway,
and what Richie was talking about, and Daniel Green let 61.1 million components stand, but reduced the punitive damages to 9 times. And if you go to 10, it gets into a violation of the 8th Amendment of your due process, because that's too big of a taking. But Richie, say you represent 12 people, and the first one gets a punitive award. What happens to the other 11, or how do they justify that? Or, how because that jury doesn't know about these other cases.
No, they don't. But generally what will happen is they'll reach a settlement, and the reason they'll do that is because the punitive issues can't be written off their taxes. Insurance doesn't pay for punitives. So they want to avoid punitives, because if they made a settlement, then obviously they can write that off their taxes, and insurance will pay a portion of it. But punitives are completely a different animal. So you keep punishing a company on individual cases enough, like it's happening with Roundup, they've got to find an end game. And so that's what they're going to do.
And what you're talking about end game is what people need to understand. When you get these many cases, you'll get them in what's called an MDL, and that's a multi-district litigation. That's where the cases are consolidated for discovery purpose all across the country. That's how cases in Mississippi end up in San Francisco from Roundup, or in East St. Louis. There's a state component. Monsanto's in St. Louis, and then there's a federal court system component that's in San Francisco. But what happens is usually the judges say, okay, you pick 5 cases, defense attorney, plaintiff attorney, or plaintiff's counsel, steering committee, you pick 5. And they go 1 defendant, one plaintiff case. So they're trying to get a baseline through the bellwether cases to determine what the value of the settlement and the equation should be, or what each case is valued. So if they go 7 for 3 defendant, your settlement value is a lot lower than if it goes 7-3 plaintiff. So people hear these verdicts, and you have to understand, if there wasn't for punitives, these companies would just do a cost-benefit analysis, and it's one of the things that does protect you from things like that. We got a text, Richie. I use Roundup as it's the product. Is it still dangerous?
Yes, the answer is absolutely. It's been banned in many countries, but now there's a warning on the Roundup bottle warning you of the possible dangers. And so you still can buy it, but now there's a warning on it. But, yes, the answer is yes, you still can get the disease from using it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a chemical.
The same products are still there.
But it's still being sold with a specific warning was the compromise as a settlement. So, I know people still using it, but it's one of those situations. And, Mike, should we not use Roundup? I use it for weeds. That's going to be an individual. I mean, when you're talking about any type of weed poisoning, and this is where you get into people trying to use more, insecticides and things like that. People are trying to get into more of a natural, organic solution than spraying. Because, let's go back to DDT. Great way to kill mosquitoes in the Delta. They used to spray it in the back of trucks. They don't do that anymore because it gets in your water supply, etc. Like Richie said, some countries have completely banned it. America has not. I know people who still use it. Just use precautions. I would use some sort of mask with it. Follow directions.
Right.
But it's one of those situations.
Well, the bad thing is it also absorbs through your skin.
Yeah.
It isn't just what you breathe, so you'll have to wear a complete hazard suit or something, with a own respirator to use it and to be absolutely safe.